वेलकम नाजरीन, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं हूं आमिर पीरज़ादा, आपका होस्ट स्टोर फ्रंट के साथ दोबारा आपके साथ हाजिर हैं। नाजरीन, जैसा आप जानते हैं, स्टोर फ्रंट में हम आपकी मुलाकात बिज़नेस ओनर से करवाते हैं, मुख्तलिफ इंटरेस्टिंग पर्सनैलिटीज़ से करवाते हैं। और इस प्रोग्राम के अंदर हमारे जो आज के गेस्ट हैं वो ना कि सिर्फ बिज़नेस ओनर्स के लिए बल्कि दोज पीपल हु आर सर्चिंग फॉर ए जॉब। सो इट वुड बी अबाउट नेटवर्किंग। तो नाज़रीन, बात करेंगे हम नेटवर्किंग के ऊपर। What is networking? Networking is, to my definition, from my point of view, we'll definitely ask our experts. From networking is reaching out to your prospects. To elaborate more, we have our guest in the studio, Mr. Joe Frankie III, who have had Army retired service of 34 years. He has been the author of the 5-minute drill, and Joe has also been a president of selection board where they help other people, other companies, major companies, to create their management team and select senior vice presidents. So Joe, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, Amir.
I appreciate it, sir, your time very much. Sir, let's talk about networking. As I said in my lame term, networking, reaching out to your prospects. So is this a good definition, or elaborate for us?
Okay, I think what you'll see is many definitions, but networking involves, the contact of at least 2 or more individuals. And out of that, what you would hope to become is some sort of relationship, which might be just a minor relationship, or you find out from talking to this person that they actually have knowledge or something that you might need or might be able to help you, or you might be able to help them.
Okay.
And so out of that exchange, something like that would happen. It's something that people normally do. We've kind of labeled it as networking, but it's a very specific way of doing things.
So another point I would like to make to our viewers is that networking, as we briefly mentioned, reaching out to your prospects. I would like to mention another thing about Mr. Joe is that he has successfully helped over 500, or close to 600 now, business professionals, including the vice president and the president of Fortune 500 companies, I would say. So this show is going to be very interesting for our viewers, because it is not just for the business owners, as well as for those people are looking for either employment or want to go into a different industry. So Joe, explain us, please, what is the difference between the old way of networking, meeting out people, and then try to compare with us. How do you see the change now, or how valuable that is now?
Well, let's take a look at the way a meeting would take place, right? So it's been it's old as the pharaohs and the pyramids, right?
Yeah.
2 people get together and they say, "Hi, my name's Joe. Hey, mine's Amir. Hey, this is what I'm doing. Okay, this is what I'm doing. Hey, I need this. Can you help me with that?"
Right.
That has been around forever and ever, and is still a very good way to do things. What's new in the last 6 or 7 years is the ability to do this virtually. And you can do that virtually, and instead of just meeting one person in an hour, you might meet 15. And that all has to do with social media, and in the case that we're probably going to discuss is a LinkedIn profile.
So with your specialty has become now, after so many years as a logistic, you had over 16 plus years being in charge in Army logistic, and you traveled all over the world. So from that perspective, now with the social media, we have access to our phones.
Right.
How do you see people getting in touch?
Well, used to, someone would have to know your phone number, or they would have to go to a phone book and look you up.
Right.
And if you were in the business, then you would be in the yellow pages. But nowadays, you could have a website. You could have a LinkedIn profile that has your company affiliated with your, individual profile. And based on what somebody chooses to search, a series of search words, you're going to get the first 200 people that match your search criteria.
So can a person still search a business owner, a business name?
Right, they can search for business names, at least on LinkedIn as well.
So would you give an example? Is this a good place also for business owners? Because LinkedIn, when the LinkedIn comes in mind, the first thing comes to mind is basically having your resume out for people to see. So either those people, who are changing jobs or looking for new work. So how would you put it in words? What be LinkedIn best for, or
I
could be
think
utilized for?
what LinkedIn is a multifunctional tool, okay? And, just like education has a series of steps you go through, I would say there's LinkedIn 101, 201, 301, 401, 501, 601.
Okay.
There's PhD level LinkedIn. Does everybody need to exercise it to that level? I don't think so, but you probably need to use it somewhere between 101 and 401, depending on what you want to do. So if you're a business owner, are you interested in marketing what your business does? If you're a professional and you are trying to market, your profession, then you would probably want to market on there all the problems that you've solved, for other people using projects or some other things. If you've accomplished patents or publications, there's all these places on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is like just a skeleton of a human body, right? So if I issued you a skeleton, right? And depending on what you wanted to do, whether you wanted to market yourself or your company, then you're going to make decisions on where you put the muscles, where you put the ligaments, where you put the tendons, and you're going to build this body in order to support, what you want to do. And so what I like to say is that if you know where you are and where you're going, where you want to go to, that there's a way to build a LinkedIn bridge from where you are to where you want to go.
Okay.
I'm not saying that you should just use this solely, but it is a tool that you can use and it doesn't cost you.
So are the resumes obsolete now? Do people still print out, send it?
You still need the
For job searches?
You still need the resume because companies ask for resumes. But if you notice, more and more companies are using certain LinkedIn applications so that when you apply, it goes out and looks at your LinkedIn profile and tells you competitively, hey, you're probably at the 40% level for this job, the 10% level, based on the skills that you have enumerated in your LinkedIn profile. And so we were talking about this earlier, but some of the most senior people I've dealt with don't use a resume anymore. The board members, CEOs, they just say, hey, Joe, you're asking me for a resume, but anything you want to know about me is in my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, so I didn't know this, but is it true that people might just ask for your LinkedIn profile? Well, is it pretty normal these days?
It is, and they don't even have to ask for it. And all they need to know is your name, right?
Yeah.
And if they're on LinkedIn, they can go and look you up, or say, I'm going to recommend Amir to my friend John King. Well, I might take your LinkedIn profile URL and say, John, I'd like to introduce you to Amir. Here's his LinkedIn profile URL.
Okay.
And I don't have to put an attachment on there or anything else.
Right.
And so that is really handy because when you try to send resumes around, you're attaching a Word document to an email. And a lot of companies have policies that the only people that handle resumes are the HR department.
So, Joe, with your excellent Army career over 34 years and being involved with a lot of people and traveling all over the world, and now your current position, as I shared with viewers, is that executive search consultant.
Right.
And this is what you have been doing full time with your, and we'll come to your book
Okay.
also. So would you like to share so we can create a little bit interest for our people, for our viewers, to see what would be their first step from going completely clueless about having LinkedIn profile and to really go after what they're looking for. Would you like to share any incident in your out of 500 consulting where you have seen a dramatic change for somebody?
I've seen dramatic changes. You know, when you deal with people, it is just like what you would imagine. You can coach somebody, right, and they can get very excited about what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, if you want something good to happen to you, it usually involves work, right? And it's I equate that to writing, you know, the term paper in college. You know, you go, you do some research, you lay out an outline, and then you just keep going over it, and you know, as you do that, you might change your, you know, the way you were going, right? Because your research took you a slightly different direction. It's the same thing. I'd say that marketing and merchandising yourself is a journey. It's a journey that you commit to because it's not a destination.
Right.
Because you're gonna live. Tomorrow's a new day.
Right.
And you will have learned something new, done something new, or helped somebody, and that'll be new things.
So would you like to share any incident, any anecdote with somebody you consulted, and either they were completely clueless and you saw the big result? Any success story would you like to share?
Yeah, I had a gentleman, and you know, he came to me and he was indicating that you know, he just wasn't getting any traction. He was you know, applying for all these jobs and all this stuff, and I said, why in the world are you applying? And he said, well, I need to get a job. And I said, why don't you build a world-class LinkedIn profile and let them come to you?
Okay.
You need to do both, right?
I didn't know that part, but I'll know.
So in other words, if a company and you want to apply for something on the company, it usually says, hey, fill out this form, attach your resume, or something similar to that. We've all been through that. But once you are beyond your entry level, more and more employment is, in other words, it's not posted.
Right.
In other words, so somebody is going to find you, or somebody turns it over to a search company like me and says, hey, I need a new vice president of such and such, and then we do the search. But if you are not out there, you can't be found by those of us that are searching, the HR people, you know, the HR department, or even executive search consultants. And so his profile was just what I call just skin and bones, right? Hey, I had this position, you know, from here to here, this position, I went to school here, you know, and I said, okay, what did you do in this position? Okay, what did really rock your boat? I mean, what did you really deliver? And he was he was a quality person, so he had his numbers. He had, hey, I improved this, I did Lean Six Sigma, I did, and he had the numbers, quantitative, qualitative metrics. Okay, and I said, well, then tell those bullet stories in the experience. And oh, by the way, why don't you build a project and then amplify that down in the project section? So anyway, you know, it took a lot of work. He had to do some research, but I mean, he wanted something to happen, right? He was motivated.
Right.
So once he did this in 2 or 3 weeks, what he found was the jobs he was applying for, the search consultants and the companies were contacting him for 2 positions higher than what he was looking for.
Even though he was qualified for those.
Yeah, so what my point is, his perception of what he brought to the table was different in his mind than what his abilities brought to the table.
Okay.
And so what happened was, now he was able to merchandise his abilities, and people were able to see him for what he brought to the table. So then that generated phone calls to him. And so in some cases that generated a position specification, which now he wrote a resume specifically against that position spec.
Yeah.
And used the LinkedIn profile to have all of the stories where he delivered excellence, over and over again. And that's what the profile basically allows you to do. If you've got experiences, you can populate those stories of you fixing things, solving problems, using qualitative, quantitative metrics.
Yeah. So did I understood you, if I understood you correctly, that maybe he was underselling himself?
He was. In other words, he was a vice president, looking for 2 jobs lower than that.
Right.
Okay. Because he had the experiences that would back it up.
Right.
Okay. And
once, sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens. Unless, like, even for writing resumes, we'll surely discuss with our viewers that how this can help from completely zero knowledge to finding that wonderful job you did for him, because we all actually, one way or the other, sometime undercut ourselves. So viewers, you must have enjoyed the conversation or the brief introduction that how great all this social media has become. Networking, either you are selling yourself, even in business, you're selling yourself, you're selling your products. If you are looking for a job, you are selling yourself. So once we get back, we will start with Joe, how to get started with the LinkedIn profile, which will not only help if you are searching for a job or you are trying to market yourself and have your products to be sold. So नाज़रीन, हम एक छोटी सी ब्रेक लेते हैं, इसके बाद हम आपसे मुलाकात करते हैं. आमिर पीरज़ादा को इजाज़त दीजिए. Thank you. वेलकम नाजरीन, मैं हूं आमिर पीरज़ादा, आपका होस्ट स्टोर फ्रंट के साथ दोबारा हाजिर होते हैं. नाजरीन, हमने जो फ्रैंक की द थर्ड के साथ डिस्कशन स्टार्ट की, यकीनन जो आपने इंजॉय की होगी नेटवर्किंग के हवाले से. तो नेटवर्किंग, एक चीज़ क्लियर करता चलूँ कि नेटवर्किंग, जैसा मैंने पहले मेंशन किया कि इट कुड बी फॉर ए पर्सन हु इज़ सर्चिंग और लुकिंग फॉर अ जॉब टू चेंज ईदर जॉब और करियर, or it could be for a businessman who is trying to reach his prospects. And Joe, being the executive search consultant, over successful rate, over training and coaching over close to 600 people now in his portfolio, he is one of the expert focusing in the LinkedIn. So now the question arises that being social, going out to the parties, meeting people, handing out cards, flyers, what would that help? So with that comparison, we'll talk to Joe again. So Joe, please try to explain with your great knowledge on this section is if somebody is trying to, I will say both, they are businessmen, they want to get their profile out. So either perspective you want to speak from. So what would you suggest for a completely new person who doesn't know much?
If you need a place to start, I think that one of the best books out there is called Rock the World with Your LinkedIn Profile version 2.1. Rock the World with Your LinkedIn Profile version 2.1. And it's written by Lori Ruff. And it has what I would call an expanded checklist and is the body of knowledge for LinkedIn. So a lot of times when people ask me, Joe, where do I start? I say, hey, get Lori's book. Let's read it, apply it to your particular situation. Because everybody's individual situation is different. If you're a businessman, well, you're thinking about, okay, how do I market my business? If you're a young person, you're thinking about, okay, I'm getting ready to graduate college. How am I going to get my first job? Or we've all been there somewhere in our career and say, well, I'm not in the right place. I want to change sectors. And so with LinkedIn, depending on what you want to do, even market yourself for promotion in your own company. If you know where you're at and where you want to go, you can build this bridge using LinkedIn to do that. that doesn't say that you shouldn't use all other methods that have been around forever and ever, right? What I am saying is that this is a new virtual tool that has been around in the last 7 or 8 years, and people are using it. And I've noticed that the top 5%, a lot of senior people I contact, when you ask them for a resume, they say, "Hey, Joe, everything's on my LinkedIn profile."
Yeah.
I mean, anything you want to know about me, that you could ask is there. And so a lot of people don't realize, but, on a LinkedIn profile, there is a capability where you can share your LinkedIn profile via PDF.
Uh-huh.
And when you select that, what happens is it takes your LinkedIn profile and puts it in resume format.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of times when people say, "Joe, I need a quick resume for you. We're considering you to be a project lead, on this government project." And I said, "Well, then go to my profile, hit share by PDF, and you'll have it in resume format. Cut out whatever you don't want."
Yeah.
And so I've used that successfully.
So let's say a person who read the book, got the idea, goes and creates his profile. So what are the things one should be looking into? Because the whole reason for this show and having your knowledge is to guide people actually go from one level to the other.
Right.
Let's say he got the knowledge. Do we have like help sources within that, or everybody needs a consultant?
For example,
what do they need to do next?
The reason I like that book is it has tips and suggestions, and they're all broken out, in big pieces. It has examples. It's just more than words, right? And so I think people need that, the big bold print to understand what's important. But let's talk about certain elements of the profile that are important. Subconsciously, you can't underrate a photograph. It's your image, and it's the image you project. So I always tell people, I said, you're going to find me in a suit, with a tie on, because that is how I would go somewhere where people would either interview me or consider me for a job. So I suggest that for both men and women. That's the best thing. If you're a software engineer in Silicon Valley, maybe a T-shirt will do. But for most of us, it's how you would show up at an interview. Right? Because that's what you're really doing virtually here is you're interviewing. So then the next thing right under your profile picture is the headline. It's 120 characters long, and it's probably underused by a lot of people. But you need to use all 120 characters.
Okay.
And what is it you bring to the table? What is it that you are selling? What do you do well? How do you want to be found? And the reason for that is algorithmically, those are that's the most valuable real estate on the internet.
Okay.
And that's kind of a agreement between LinkedIn and the major search engines.
Okay.
So if you went and searched Joe Franke, well, the first hit you're going to get is Joe Franke's LinkedIn profile on Google, right? Because
so this is where they are getting the hits.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the headline's very important. So everybody has what they bring to the table, and it ought to be very specific about, hey, this is what I'm offering. So I think mine has senior executive board member. Okay, I'd like somebody to call me and offer me a board position. CEO, president, because people will probably search for those kinds of experiences. I've got logistics on there because a lot of my experiences in logistics, knowledge transfer, because I have a small knowledge transfer company that I'm trying to market and merchandise.
Okay.
And then I've got author on there because we've produced this ebook which we're in the process of getting published in print.
Okay.
So that's the picture headline. The next part is the summary, and what I say in the summary is what holistically are you most proud of? What did you bring to the table? So for me, it's I'm a West Point graduate. I'm a combat veteran, you know, and I've worked internationally untangling multiple business projects up to $8 billion with as many as 53,000 people. So I've said some qualitative things. I've said some quantitative things. And so it's very important in the first half of that to show that you can measure your production. You know, and it does. That's the one place that you can add, say, 10 years, 20 years, 5 years, whatever your nugget that you are really proud of and you're putting forward that you don't want people to miss. It's kind of like the above the fold in the newspaper.
Yeah.
You don't want anybody to miss it. Then in your experience sections, those are all the positions you've had and experiences. And each of those allow for about 2,000 characters, and I suggest bullets on what you brought to the table there.
So these are the most important, the most important part. You said the executive summary or your title, the headline basically.
The headline, you really have to think about it. And the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is tomorrow you can change your mind and edit it, right?
Right.
So don't feel bad about going out there and trying something and then tomorrow, you know, if you decide, hey, this is going to work for me a little better.
Yeah.
You know?
So let's say, what other, would you like to add anything else to the list?
If you're new to LinkedIn, I really encourage that book because it's going to give you a structured look at each one of those sections.
Okay.
Right? And what you're doing is LinkedIn has given you, over time, it has expanded and allowed like your interest section, your accomplishments section, your all these other sections. And so in each of these sections, you can add various things that, you know, you have done. Like I always try to tell people, say, okay, if you've got one bullet up here in your experience section where, hey, I was a project manager, I worked on a $600 million project with 25 people, it was under budget, you know, and on time. Well, then you can go down in the project section and tell another 2,000 character story that amplifies what you did on that one bullet.
Do you have enough limit to put your story down, or?
It's 2,000 characters, so
each section?
Each project would be.
Each project you have, okay.
Yeah. So a project has a title, it has, you know, a body, that's the 2,000 characters, and then you can list the team members that work with you on that project.
Okay.
So in my case, I have 46 projects populated.
And that's all part of your profile?
Right, but the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is the only way that you would go to see those is if you chose to open them and read them.
Oh, okay.
So right now, my profile is the same size as yours.
Okay.
Okay? But if you go in mine and start opening up sections,
okay,
like the entrance section, the organization section, the volunteer section, okay, you're going to get descriptions of, you know, okay, well, what did I contribute? What did I do? So
that's why you said you need to really put work and effort into it, writing all of these, because somebody might read it, or you have to put up all the stories in it.
To me, I read a book by Peter Guber. It's called Tell to Win. And Peter Guber is the owner of the LA Dodgers and the Golden State Warriors.
Okay.
Okay, so he's a billionaire. He didn't even have to write a book.
Right.
But in this book, he said he got everything that he wanted by telling a story. He told a story to close a deal. He told a story to a person to consider a deal. He told a story, you know, to get his way with the government, you know, on certain exceptions to policy. I mean, so to me, the power of storytelling is very important. And in LinkedIn, what I say in the project section, you say who, what, when, where, and qualitative, quantitative metrics.
Okay.
So in the search business, I see people every day that's just blah, blah, blah. You know, I did this, these were my responsibilities.
Yeah.
Really, when you're hunting for a client, they have given you a position specification, and they say, I want somebody that has solved these problems, right? In other words, they want them to have experience in that.
Right.
So if you have that on your LinkedIn profile, then I'm going to find you. Probably I'm going to call you if I'm because you have what I need. But if you don't have it and I can't find you, there's no connection, right?
Right.
So LinkedIn gives you this ability to have these connections that we wouldn't normally have.
Okay.
For example, this gentleman that said, "Hey, Joe, I don't write resumes anymore. You can find anything you want on my
Right.
LinkedIn profile." And I thought at the time, that was the first time I'd heard that, and I thought that's really, crass, that's rude,
Yeah.
But when I went to his LinkedIn profile, he had the video links embedded in his profile where he had given major world conference presentations at summits, right, over the last 10 years. So in those video links, I could see his slide deck.
Uh-huh.
I could see him giving the presentation. I could see him working on the panel, interacting with other people. I can see the audience asking him questions and him taking a very complex subject and answering it in a way that a normal man would understand that. So what I learned was I knew more about him from watching 7 hours of these presentations than if I interviewed him for 2 hours.
Right.
Because in those settings, it was all the things that these other clients were needing. He had that experience. He's given world conference presentations. He can handle layman's questions from the floor.
Uh-huh.
He can organize his thoughts. He can measure his production.
Okay. So, but those things, how do they search, by the way? I'm looking at from the, search consultant. Have you searched for prospects? So when you search, do you you go into the details, or how do you search them?
So like if I'm looking for a candidate, right? So say I'm looking for a chief financial officer, right? Well, then you put search criteria in there, a number of keywords up in the LinkedIn thing.
Okay.
And then you're going to get the first 200 that meet
Match that, okay.
So sometimes, just like with any other Boolean search, you mix the keyword order, you get a different set, and you just keep narrowing those kind of things down. And the question is at the end of the day, do you have a number of people that you would want to narrow even it further down?
Uh-huh. So if a person has been social enough through all the other social networking sites, so LinkedIn, how important it is to be listed in? How much one should invest enough time to write all those about him or herself?
I think my view is you can't afford not to.
Not to, okay.
Okay. For example, some of the highest paying consulting assignments have come to me based on my high school entry.
Mm-hmm.
Now my high school entry's got almost 2,000 characters in it. It's everything I did in high school.
Okay.
But this gentleman searched for a criteria that was on my high school thing.
Uh-huh.
That generated a phone call, okay? He sent me a note on LinkedIn, "Hey Joe, I found you searching for Texas Boys State," and so then we ended up scheduling a call. We got to know each other, and he said, "Joe, I've been through your profile. I think you have a lot of experience. I think you might be able to help me because you have done wide-ranging things." And so
with this thought, Joe, we'll get back to our viewers for this session, at least guiding them. We'll discuss a little bit more about your new book, 5-Minute Drill, and hopefully we'll discuss that how you can help other people who would like your consulting. So नाज़रीन हमारे साथ रहिएगा छोटी ब्रेक के बाद हम आपको मज़ीद सवालात के आपके जवाबात देंगे और hopefully we'll provide you the best information. तो हमारे साथ रहिएगा. We'll be right back. वेलकम नाजरीन, वेलकम बैक. आमिर पीरज़ादा आपका होस्ट स्टोरफ्रंट के साथ. नाजरीन, hope you enjoyed our conversation with Joe Franke, who has been helping a lot of executives with their business search or job search from high top management to any level anybody wants to search for. He has successfully helped over 600 people using LinkedIn, and this is why it's so crucial. So नाज़रीन आइए हम आपकी मुलाकात well we have been talking to him, so मज़ीद मालूमात फराहम करते हैं कि what would be the best way to start, और इनकी एक बुक है जो ई बुक ज़रूर पढ़िएगा. So Joe, back to you, sir. Would you like to first I would like to say, if somebody, you have already given enough information for somebody to get excited and really go forward and read those books to acquire the knowledge they need. So what a new person should sign for? You said there are some levels. So what would you recommend?
I think at the very beginning, you can use the free level. Okay, because you actually need to build your LinkedIn profile. So there's no point in paying for the additional services. The difference would be is all of a sudden you realize that you need to do searches, right? Searches on business, searches on other people. Then you would need the first paying level, because what the first paying level gives you access to the entire world of LinkedIn. When you're on the free side, you can only reach out to your third level connection. And so, but if you don't have a profile, there's nothing for anybody to come to. So I'd say on the front end, stay on the free side and get your profile built. And learn how to use LinkedIn.
And how much does it cost to go, and how many levels are there?
There are a number of levels, and it's very expensive at the super business level. Like they have a recruiter level, they have a sales manager level, and those are like $400, $500 a month. And the only people that would have that is somebody that's making money, right, from using those kind of tools. Even I just use the first level of the business. So I use the first level of the paying side, because all I want is access to the entire LinkedIn database.
So for a person who is trying to go to the next level can still survive with the first initial level. Or you said recommend the second one also, if they go a little bit beyond.
If they're needing to find companies and businesses, you can't do the search without being on the first paying level to really use the power of LinkedIn. But if you don't understand how LinkedIn works, there's no point in paying for something until you have wrapped your head around how to do that. And that's why I always say, if you've made it through Lori's book on Rock the World, then you'll understand how everything connects, why, how. And if you understand that, then you're starting to wrap your head around the body of knowledge of LinkedIn. And as you get your head further wrapped around that, then you can use it as a tool.
Right, of course. So Joe, tell us about your book, The 5-Minute Drill.
The 5-Minute Drill to Executive Networking Success was inspired by the 571 people I'd coached, because a number of them said, Joe, why don't you take all this stuff and put it in a pamphlet or an ebook, or when you first hear that, you just think, well, they're being nice, and so I heard that more and more, and so I talked to Lori Ruff, who she and I have collaborated over the years on how to use LinkedIn. Her what she found out, what I found out, and what worked, what didn't work. So consequently, she said, well, let's write a book. So we decided to write an ebook, and it focuses on, hey, an executive only has about 5 minutes a day, right? And so if they're going to use LinkedIn, hey, this is what they should be doing in those 5 minutes. Now, this book recommends the other book I recommended, because this means you've already got your profile. Okay, this is what you're going to do.
They have already been coached by Joe Frankie III.
Well, I mean, but you're out there, and this is okay. How did I make the most of it? So that's what's in this book, is how to make the most in 5 minutes a day. What things you should check, what groups you should belong to, why. It just once again, it depends on what are you trying to do. You're either trying to follow something, or you're trying to expand business, or you're trying to get relationships. And based on that, you take appropriate actions.
So would you like to name those books you recommended, because the next part I want to discuss a little bit more is your services to people if somebody would like to contact you, and how would you take them, because you already provided those important factors which include. Would you like to name those books again you
Sure.
recommend to people?
If you're looking for a place to start with LinkedIn, I call it the body of knowledge of LinkedIn. And secondly, I'm not a woman, but Lori Ruff is a woman, and she has a section in that book.
Okay.
As a woman, these are things you need to consider as well on social media.
Okay.
And that's Rock the World with Your LinkedIn Profile, version 2.1 by Lori Ruff. The other book that I think is so important is you've got to be able to tell your story with quantitative, qualitative metrics. Mm-hmm. And the book Tell to Win by Peter Guber, I think is, if you're looking for an excellent business book, to read, it's more than just about LinkedIn. It's about a businessman and how to win.
Okay.
Right? But I used his technique in the way I coach people to market and merchandise themselves.
Okay. And not to forget the 5-minute drill.
Yeah.
So having these book read, if somebody wants to contact you, what would be the best way? And also, please elaborate, I would say, how do you take one person who's looking for your service? Because you already gave enough information. Somebody goes to the LinkedIn, read books, knowledge themselves. But if they have coach, of course, on their side, what do you do for your client?
Well, because everybody's an individual, right?
Right.
If I talk to you or if I talk to somebody else, you've got slightly different goals in mind. You're at different places of where you are. And, how do you effectively get to where you want to go as fast and as efficiently as possible? And so that's why a lot of times people want me to talk in a group setting about LinkedIn. But really, every individual's got a certain thing that they want to do. Nobody does this as a group. They do it as an individual. So I've found that it's just more productive helping people individually.
So where do you start off with? From, let's say he had basic terminology. Of course, you will assume or you will recommend that they do some research on their own.
Right. I mean, there's a lot to be gained by just getting the book and applying it, right? Rock the World with Your LinkedIn Profile, because it's a very structured approach. And the other thing is this is all about individuals, right? I could take a horse and lead it to water and say, we're going on a long march, you need to drink. But if the horse is not thirsty, it's not going to drink.
Right. That's a good example, yeah.
And so what I found is my best clients are people that are thirsty, right? They know what they want, and they don't see how to get there, and they want some structure in how to do it quick. And the ones that have really been rewarded are the ones that just jump in there, follow the advice, execute it. And there's a number of recommendations on my profile from a number of people that have provided me recommendations based on
what you have done and how you coached them. So if somebody wants to reach you, what would be the best way?
The best way is by LinkedIn.
By LinkedIn.
Right. My name's Joe Frankie III, and that's where I'm at.
Okay. The next question, which leads to, from business perspective, because you want to add something to the business owner. You mentioned about your person you were looking at profile where you saw all the videos of his lectures. If somebody wants to really go, a business person can do that. Would that help being at LinkedIn?
The key.
Somebody who's selling a product.
Yes. The answer is yes to everything. But like in everything in the world, there's an order, right? So like if we were going to build this room, right, that we're in right now, we can't worry about the walls until we have the floor and the foundation in.
Right.
And the biggest problem I find with people is they're asking me 401 level questions, and they don't have a 101 level profile.
Okay.
Okay, and so a lot of the coaching I do is, hey, there's an order to this. Let's get the basics. Okay, and the basics are nouns and verbs, right? In other words, don't worry about videos and media if you don't have any words and verbs in there, because verb means you did something, right? And then what I'm suggesting is, if you did something, how did you measure what your production was? I mean, if you look at anybody if you're employing anybody, right, the only reason you're employing them is they're adding value to the company. And I always say, hey, what value do you add?
Yeah.
Okay? Because a lot of times they just say, well, I have the duty to do this and do that and do that. And I say, okay, well, and I always ask them, I said, what was the number one thing you did there that everybody thought was wonderful? And they all have a story.
Yeah.
But none of that's on their LinkedIn profile.
Right.
And it's not backed up in a project.
Okay.
They just haven't told that story. So therefore, if I'm a search consultant and I see that, well, you're just like the other 1,000 resumes or LinkedIn profiles I've looked at over the last 2 days. They don't tell me anything. So the key is thinking about, okay, how do you measure your production? And then if you're a business owner, because you asked about that, you can build a company page on LinkedIn. It doesn't cost you anything.
Okay.
And so that gives you added visibility. So that's marketing for you that didn't cost you any money.
Yeah, that's very true. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of people may not even know about it.
Right.
So do you do one-to-one sessions over the phone, in person?
I do one-to-one in person and one-to-one over the phone, where both of us are at a computer.
Okay.
So I've coached people in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
You know, and I've never met the person.
Really? So how did they contact you? Through your profile?
Through LinkedIn, through my profile.
Very nice.
And
I mean, that really amazes me sometimes, how it has grown. I remember people would line up to submit their resumes, you know, to those people who would come at school or job expos and all of this.
And there's still a place for that. But when you start getting above the entry-level positions, what you're going to find is more and more, then people are going to find you as opposed to you finding them.
Do you help people search a job also, or you just?
I show them how to
market yourself.
And then how to search. Like, for example, I would say, okay. They say, okay, I do this, and I said, well, where would you like to work?
Okay.
And then some people are so knowledgeable, right? They say, well, I would really like this particular job in this company, this particular job. In other words, they have 10 places in Houston that they want to work, right? And they know the exact job. And I said, well, that's great, because every year, probably 10% or 20% those people are going to change, right? So why wouldn't you build a world-class profile and then spend the time networking with who might make the decision on hiring that person in each one of these companies?
You mentioned something that let the job find you. So who searches? I mean, just out of curiosity, and people might have some questions.
Executive recruiters, and when I say recruiters, everybody that's a recruiter, anybody that's in the
any HR firms,
HR firms,
or the HR department within the company.
HR departments, you know. Some of them, if they're big enough, they'll have internal recruiters or contract recruiters.
Okay.
So they have people searching, you know, for a list of jobs, right? And they'll have the position specs, and they're doing the searching. And maybe those are the ones that they haven't posted. Okay.
So recruiting job is basically not finished. You know, we used to hear some names, you know, you will submit your resumes at their websites.
Right, and then secondly, I always tell people, I say, well, you know, you would have a good experience, and you could add value in the government, but I mean, you know, and they say, well, but they're not applying. I said, but send your resume anyway.
Yeah.
You might get a phone call 2 years from now.
Yeah.
And you can say yes or no.
Yeah.
But that beats not having the phone call.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Joe. I really appreciated your time. and it was really informative, and hopefully our viewers also enjoyed it. तो नाज़रीन, आपने जो फ्रैंकी के साथ मुलाकात आज देखी, होपफुली आप लोगों ने एंजॉय किया होगा इसको. LinkedIn, how important that is. We are not talking about social media where somebody posts a picture or something to Instagram or Facebook or any other social media site. We were talking about a LinkedIn which you can use it with little cost or no cost and expand yourself and be available from a business point of view. So नाज़रीन, hope you enjoyed our topic in this show. अगर आपको कोई क्वेश्चन हो इस प्रोग्राम से रिलेटेड, या you want to get back in touch with Joe, please you can find him or you can go to his site the5minutedrill.com, और हमें आप ईमेल कर सकते हैं storefrontagtv@gmail पे. तो नाज़रीन, नेक्स्ट प्रोग्राम हम आपके लिए एक दिलचस्प प्रोग्राम लेकर आएंगे. जब तक के लिए इजाज़त दीजिए मुझे और मेरे गेस्ट जो फ्रैंकी को. खुदा हाफ़िज़.